waiting for Baccarat, and that goes in! Hugo Baccarat gives Flint City a 3-2. Buckley, the ball falls to Buckley. 1-on-1 with Etheridge. What a save!
Welcome into the first ever MSN All-State Media Day for girls soccer. Jonathan Turner alongside Dan Stickrat.
Ball comes in, a good head! 1-0! Shot, another save from Etheridge! Rebound, and it goes in the back of the net. The Bulldogs up 1-0! Burzma, but then for Vlasma! 3-0! Stewart Heights with a shot! Upper 90 and in!
Effectively today here on the Michigan Soccer Network, we are launching our new division of player recruitment videos.
Mario Canoe now finds Sock. Finds Sock's got a left-footed banger. He shoots it! It's in! The Red Hawks equalize!
All right, well, now I am joined by Santiago Amada from the UPSL. He's Midwest East Conference Manager. And Santiago, man, welcome to the Michigan Soccer Network.
Thanks for having me, man. A big fan of the show on the field and off the field for the last few years. So excited to be here.
No, I will never forget the moment I saw you for the first time. It was out at a park in Auburn Hills, Michigan. You're playing against the Rebels FC. And it was, to be fair, it was a really crappy field. It's not a good field. I mean, I know they do the best they can there, but it is not the best grass pitch ever created. And I think you scored like 1,000 goals in that game. I mean, you were
4 goals, still a record at Berlin to this day. So,
so
happy we got that one on video.
But yeah, four goals, and what a night. And matter of fact, I think you scored the only 4 goals for your team in that game, and then it was like a 4-3. I think they ended up coming back and scoring 3 goals in that one. And
yeah, it was kind of a funny one because it was ended up being it was actually 7-3 because the other guy on our team scored a hat trick, so 2 of us scored 7 goals. But it was like that. It was back and forth, and then all of a sudden we just scored 4 goals in the last few minutes and put it away. But so
yeah,
that memory is impressive.
Just before we got back on the air, talking about this, we were just talking about like how that was when we were using iPads, to broadcast our games, and obviously, I was touchscreen on the iPad to produce everything using similar, different microphones then than we are now, but just how far we've come, and you guys were part of the first part of what we were doing here back 3 years ago. So. But Santiago, you're the conference manager of the UPSL Midwest East, right? And the Midwest East has been one of those conferences that, up until like this season, has kind of been up and down with its team. I think last year there were maybe 8 teams in the league. Now it's up to 11 officially. I know there was a team that at the beginning of the season was 12 and a team dropped out. But the UPSL has done a great job growing here in the last year to get more teams here in Michigan, and 11 teams here for this spring season.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I came on just under a year ago. My dad actually, Gabriel, he kind of works it with me. So he's more of like the operations and admin, and I'm a little bit more like responsible for dealing with the teams individually. So I feel like what we tried to do right away is just basically create a more like structured approach, have a very like professional environment when it comes to like just how things are run, even our, statistics, organization. We try to keep a good track of everything and really highlight all the good players. We've had a good number of new teams come into the division this year, all of which, are signing pretty solid, college level players and whatnot. So it's definitely become a very contested division. Even this year going in, I had no idea what to expect. So it's good to see that there's pretty much every team is still in the play. So it'll be interesting to see how this all shapes out. But yeah, we had 12 teams. We had 1 team withdraw right in the first week of the season. So we're down to 11 teams, but we want to keep this at 12 moving forward and hopefully create a Division 1 in the future so we can create that pro relegation structure here in Michigan.
As someone who's been a part of a lot of UPSL games over the years, a lot of times people ask me, hey, what's the difference between you and another league or whatever? And to be fair, and maybe you might know the answer to this better than I do, but to be fair, from the playing standpoint, I don't know if there's a ton of separation between the UPSL and other leagues. But what separates the leagues is how they're managed, right? What separates leagues is what's happening from the top to the bottom, right? And I don't know if you agree or disagree with me on that regard, but I feel like player for player, there's a lot of similarities in the leagues in this area. It comes down to what league is going to give you the most value. And I don't think there's another league in the country right now at the amateur level that gives you more value than the UPSL.
Yeah, I think one of the things that the league itself is very good for is just minimizing costs and making the barrier to entry relatively like approachable for organizations that want to get involved. One of the things that we've, especially in the last few years, I've seen as personally as playing in the league and also owning one of the teams is just the standards and whatnot increasing. We have a lot of MLS academies now joining the divisions. Some of the teams, especially the ones that have been winning year in and year out into the conferences, these teams go toe to toe with any USL League Two team, NPSL team, and whatnot. I always say, my friend Ryan, who used to coach our team at FC Berlin, we always talk about how like a top 10 UPSL team will pretty much compete or beat any top 10 NPSL and anything at the top level. All these leagues are very, very similar. It's all semi-pro, amateur, right? So I do think that, from a playing perspective, the quality of players, especially in this area, Detroit Metro, a lot of these teams are within, 100 kilometers, 60 miles from radius of Metro Detroit, except for Pass Pro was in Grand Rapids. So to see that many quality teams and that many quality players in a relatively small area gives you an idea of the amount of quality that there is in these areas. And especially with new teams like Detroit City FC2 putting in an academy team and a reserve team into the division, I think it's really kind of up the quality overall and hopefully up the standards. Like standards-based approach is always been something I've been proud of. We try to set an example through our club that we've had playing both in Michigan and now Western New York in the spring. And for us, like we always say, we want to treat other teams the way we would want to be treated. So we've had a couple away games now where people come to us the first year and the second year, they take care of us really well. And we're hoping to kind of set that standard.
No, that's really, really cool. And someone that's, again, I've said this, we've had a very unique relationship with the UPSL here in Michigan Soccer Network. We've had a chance and a pleasure and a privilege of covering, two UPSL national finals, one in Columbus here back in August of 2022. And then this past summer, we traveled down to Leesburg, Virginia, and had a chance to call those games there as well. So, we have a great relationship. We've struck a deal with the UPSL to cover 10 Midwest East matchups here this season, games of the week. Our first one coming up here this Sunday. And it's going to be a good one. Newcomers to the league, right? And we want to talk about that a little bit because, again, these newcomers, there's been a number over the years that have hopped in. But we have some newcomers here playing out at Michigan Stars Complex here this upcoming Sunday.
Yeah, so this weekend, I think one of the interesting things about this new team, one of the teams, Olympic Macomb, has been around for the last few years. They played in the spring season. Robbie, I've known the owner quite well. But United Stars Soccer Academy is kind of an interesting one. They were going to set up shop both either in Ohio area or Detroit, and we kind of convinced them to stay in the Detroit metro area. They're more or less an affiliate team with Michigan Stars. They have a good relationship there, and what I've noticed with them is they take everything very, very professionally. Like they have from day one, they had all their uniforms. They have a media team. They take the match day operations stuff very, very seriously. So it'll be interesting to see, if their on-field product, continues to show. But I had them as one of the underdogs for this team this season, and they've had a pretty good start. With a 2-0-1, 2 wins, 1 loss so far. I think it's a good start to their season, given that they're just coming in, and I think they're with the players that they've signed as well. Once they come, finish the spring season and whatnot with their colleges, I think they'll be definitely a team to watch out for the playoffs.
Now, FK Olympic Macomb, who's been around for a couple of years, I remember we called them their first game. It was actually a UPSL game here just over 2 years ago. They actually played against the Nationals at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and they had a slow go there that first year. But hey, man, they're sitting atop the table right now with 3 wins, and they're taking obviously this United Stars team that's got 2 wins of their own and a loss. So it should be a fairly good matchup here coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, I think again, Robbie and his team have done a pretty good job at starting the season. They got a quick win against Dearborn United in the first game of the season to kind of set the pace for themselves. And then they had a contested game against Alianza, another, regular in the division, always a tough team to play, especially away. But yeah, it'll be interesting. You know, we get to cover the top two teams going at it this weekend. It'll be interesting to see, you know, more or less what the scoreline is, how the teams shape up. And, you know, we haven't been able to see too many of the teams play live on the stream so far. So hopefully being able to kind of broadcast it on the network will help us, you know, push for everybody else to start streaming their games and really have that online presence.
Yeah, no question about that. As you know, so we have two games actually coming up here. So we have a game on Sunday against the United Stars Soccer and FK Olympic Macomb, and then we see a rematch of the 2023 Midwest East Central Championship game between Detroit United and Hamtramck City FC coming up here on Wednesday.
Yeah, that one will be a tasty one. It's at Keyworth Stadium on Wednesday night. It's a little later, 9:30 kickoff, but you know, Detroit United, and especially in that final, I was there last fall when they had that final match. I had to present the trophies and whatnot, and it was a close game. Detroit United was missing quite a few players due to injury and whatnot, and Hamtramck was coming off a pretty crazy season of winning everything. So they had all the momentum going into that game. Obviously, they won the game and went on to the playoffs and whatnot. So yeah, it's going to be a tasty one. We have two really good matches, especially in the next few days from Sunday to Wednesday. So it's good that we'll be able to obviously like stream them and again see what four of the top teams have to offer this season.
That's right. Those games will be on the UPSL UPSL YouTube channel here. Kickoff on Sunday is at 6:30 p.m. From the Michigan Stars complex out in Washington Township, and then the game on Wednesday live from Keyworth in Hamtramck at 9:30 p.m. Again, both those games can be found on the UPSL YouTube channel, and yours truly will be on the call for both of those games. Matter of fact, that night we've got a game in Romeo, a high school game that I'll be doing at 7 o'clock, and then scurrying over to do a 9:30 game at Keyworth. So double duty on Wednesday night. But so, you know, every week we're going to be doing this. We're going to be hopping on, me and you, Santiago. We're going to be talking things UPSL, you know, talking about the matchups, talking about games we're going to be covering and the league as a whole. What is it that you want the world out there in our viewers to know about this league that we haven't already talked about?
I think like league aside, I think there's some just very interesting like personalities within our conference. Like a lot of the teams come from different groups and they have a lot of cultural backing towards them. Some of the teams come from, you know, from European backgrounds, you know, backgrounds in Southeast Asia and whatnot. So there's a lot of, you know, community connection to a lot of the teams that we have here. And I think it'll be really cool to be able to highlight some of those stories. And I think the difference between, like I say, a UPSL conference and anything else that's available locally is, at the end of the day, the UPSL is a national league, meaning that there is a national tournament at the end, and we can see one of these teams from the Detroit metro area potentially go all the way to the finals, right? So it would be cool to see that story. Last year in Western New York, we had one of the teams in our conference make it all the way to I think it was the quarterfinals of the nationals. FCY New York, another very like community-based team in Buffalo. So it'll be interesting to see like how far these teams can make it this season, how close everything goes. And honestly, we want to use this platform that you obviously have provided for us as an opportunity to also share some of the stories. I think it would be great to bring some of the coaches along, feature some of them, have them, you know, talk about their team, their organization, their background, their history. And I think just showcasing some of the stories will be really cool this year.
Yeah, I you know, that's the one thing me and Dan have talked about on the air quite a bit, and it's one of those things where, you know, every team has its own identity, right? We know that. The hardest thing that you have to fight for in today's soccer world is being able to build on your identity within your community, right? Because there's, especially here in Michigan now, we know between the UPSL and other leagues, not just the semi-pro, but also on the professional side, there's a lot of people fighting for fans, for a base. And it's really hard to do that. And obviously by coming on a platform like ours and being able to share your stories, your community, what you're trying to accomplish, those things can help teams be able to get, I think, a better footing and a better foundation in those communities that they're trying to build.
For sure. I think one of the things that I've kind of always governed myself with was the idea that you can't objectively make something cool. You can't force something to be cool. And that's, you see that a lot in like professional sports where these teams come into these big franchises and whatnot, and it's more or less you're forced to cheer for them and be a part of it. So you don't really get like an emotional connection like you do in other parts of the world. Like I'm from Argentina, my family's from there too. So we see like teams like, for example, like it's a huge example, but Boca Juniors as like a club, it goes deeper than just being a club that people cheer for. Like people like grow up in that world and it's part of their identity, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of these teams have the opportunity to create something similar if they can really find their own just unique way to cater to their fan base. But I agree with the sentiment. You can't force someone to like something. You can't force someone to be a fan. And I think what the success that we've had with our club, being a team that's always playing away, is it's just interesting. The story is interesting to hear about these people that are coming from so far. And because we have good relationships with a lot of the teams that we play against, they end up being supporters, and we exchange scarves with them. And it's building a good just community environment for everybody, both on the field with the players that are playing, also with the people that are supporting them from back home, and in the few chances we've gotten to play in front of our fans. Like when people really need to come out and support something, that they do. And you see that as well with, again, going back to the final from last fall, Hamtramck City versus Detroit United, they had a crowd. Like a lot of people from their community came out, and it was really cool to see. You know, they were, when they won it all, like everyone ran on the field, was hyping it up, and it was a good community moment for everybody. So that's why I think that the league has to offer is the opportunity to create something unique, something cool. And there are teams in the UPSL that have a really strong branding and have created something very unique that hopefully can propel them to become an even bigger and better club in the future.
Yeah, no question. And something that we've talked about this on the network, and Detroit United is one of those teams here locally in the Midwest East that have consistently been the team that makes its way past the championship game and on to the next round into the national tournament, right? And last year, Hamtramck City, obviously with that win, pushes themselves into that position. Detroit United's been that staple. They've consistently found a way to be in that top four at the end of the season. Most cases, they're one or two, and then they make their way into the championship game. I think they've been in the championship game almost every season for like the last 8 seasons. I mean, it's been pretty consistent. Do we see more of the same from Detroit United? Or I mean, I know we got new teams coming in. Hamtramck, obviously, trying to get back there as well. But I mean, Detroit United's always found a way to make it work, and it's a recipe.
That's the best way to say it is they always find a way. I know Benny pretty well. A lot of the guys I played with at college play at DU, and Benny's been trying to convince me to leave Berlin for 2 years now to come play for him. But it's cool. I really like Detroit United from again, this is like the community base that they have, but it's very different to the other teams. What I find that Detroit United really has is just a very loyal player base. They always have good players. Like everybody that I know that is good in that area has either played for them or knows about them or is involved in them. And their core group of guys that they've had for a long time, guys like David Tatai, Robert Berisha, like guys that have been around the league for a good time. David played at Cleary where I went to school as well. So I have a pretty good connection with a lot of these guys, and they're just great players, and they take it seriously. They still train quite like a lot. They're fit. And they, at the end of the day, like you say, they find a way, but they're just competitive people. Like they want to win and they play to win. So that's why it's a team that no one ever wants to play against. That's a game that's always been tricky for us, because even if they don't have their starting guys, if they're missing players, it's still a hard game to win. Home or away. So that's why I feel like they've had success, is when it really comes down to it and they need to have a clutch moment, they score those clutch goals that they need. And last fall, like I said, in the final, they were missing a few players, and it was pretty notable. But at the end of the day, they still gave Hamtramck a very, very tough game until quite literally the last whistle. They scored the 4-2 go-ahead goal after DU had a really close chance on a corner. So otherwise, it would have been a lot closer of a game, and they could have even gotten to overtime. So yeah, it's definitely a team to beat.
Well, and there's no question. And when we talk about the recipes for success in the UPSL, I think a lot of teams come from the school of thought that, and this is where comes the reality of it is that the college player, right? While that is a great resource in the summer and maybe into the early fall, the reality is that Detroit United has been able to find a way by bringing back players who are no longer in college, who are probably have day jobs, right? And they just keep coming back, and they have a really good base core of players. And that's been, and if you look at a lot of these teams across the country that make it all the way to a final, they have a good base of young kids who are playing with them on their teams, but their core group is made up of experienced, either former professionals or former high-level players, and that's their 5 or 6 core guys. And they've got a nice little, added flavor of 4 or 5 college kids who can help make that game even better.
100%. We've played in the fall 21, 22, and 23 seasons, and there's guys that have play for DU in those 3 years against us and the 3 spring seasons as well before that. Like they have guys that have played there for 4 or 5 years now. And again, in my opinion, that makes a huge difference. If every year you're building a brand new team based on college guys that you maybe recruit, it's really hard to build an identity. So when you have the same guys coming back year in, year out, and you're only really replacing a couple pieces here and there, it keeps your identity and your smoothness of play a lot higher and your standard a lot higher because the guys already have a little bit of that built-in chemistry. And honestly, that kills teams. And I've seen that before too, where people put teams together like pretty last minute. We had that kind of problem last year, our team, and we didn't really have a really good season because we put together kind of a mixed bag of guys, some guys that had played together before, and we really couldn't find much momentum until it was too late going into the last few games of the season to really fight for anything. So I've seen it from both ends where we had guys that have played with us for 5 years through our academy and came all the way up and played with the first team. And then when we tried to put it together, it didn't really work. So that's why I give them a lot of credit for being able to retain those players year in, year out, because it's definitely not easy. And I know it's definitely a place where people want to play. So yeah, I give them credit for that.
No question about that. Santiago, man, we appreciate you stopping by here. We'll be doing this every week here throughout the UPSL season, recapping what's happened here during the previous week and looking forward to the upcoming matches that we'll be covering and matches all across the league. So stay tuned for more of that. But Santiago Amata, the Midwest East Conference Manager for the UPSL, and also the owner and coach player of FC Berlin out of Ontario.
Yeah, no, we kind of give up the title of coach for right now. So we hired some new coaches and finally have somebody at the helm who's qualified, unlike myself. So yeah, but I appreciate always the love from you guys, and hopefully the games go smoothly this weekend, and we have a lot more to talk about next Tuesday.
No worries. Hey, thank you very much, Santiago. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.